All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the WatchWell Podcast. We hope you had a great Valentine's Day. We have a lot to cover in this episode, but before we get into our discussion, we want to ask you to like, share, subscribe, and do all the social media stuff. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. A lot of content out there that we are going to be pushing for the rest of the year. And as always, Nick, it's been a while, man. It's been a while. How was your week?
I had a great week. If this is posted when we think it'll be posted, it'll be right after my birthday. So,
That's
um,
right.
so
Should
yeah,
I ask you
great
how
week.
old you'll be?
You can. I'll be
But
37.
you'll do one of those.
Yeah. So,
Do one.
so last year, when I turned 36, yeah, just one of these. But when I turned
Yeah.
36, my wife thought I was turning 35. So she like planned this big thing because she thought it was this milestone birthday, like 35,
Right. Right.
35 years old. And then later, because of our podcast, she
Uh
found
huh.
out, no, he's actually turning 36. Should have done this last year.
But you didn't
Still,
argue, right?
no, I didn't argue.
You
I was
didn't argue.
I accepted all of it. Yeah, it was fun. It was enjoyable, but
You
um
were a year younger for a
yeah,
little while, at least.
you're younger for a little bit in her mind. So, yeah.
Cool. So let's kind of get into these. I'm gonna rattle some of these themes off. We're gonna restructure our episodes just so you guys know. We think it might be a little easier to listen and follow along. So today we've got a couple of topics, a few, actually six to be exact, that we're gonna talk about. So we're gonna talk about the selfish pursuits over people, the power of acceptance in a safe place, friendship in dating and in marriage, how love is not transactional, and the power of a man's relentless pursuit, and finally the self destructive path to avoid pursuit. But before we get into the first theme, Nick, do you want to talk about the content advisory? You know, how we go through and talk about, it's a chick flick, how to lose a guy in 10 days.
Hmm.
Any thoughts on, normally we do this more for the kids stuff, but what if you were
Yeah.
like a high school student and you wanted to use this as like a, you know, Valentine's Day kind of thing? Any issues there?
No, I don't have any issues. It's PG-13. I think that's appropriate. Um, there is a lot of repeated profanity, but it all relates back to a card game. So it's, in terms of the way movies usually use profanity, I think it's one of the more um, acceptable ways to use it. So I thought, yeah, I don't have any problem with a teenager watching this, even as low as 13. I think it's a fairly clean movie. They do suggest some sex scenes and things like that that take place. But yeah, I don't have a problem um, with a teenager watching the movie.
When you say 13, are you letting them watch this movie with their friends by themselves?
I did when I was 13. I actually saw this in theaters. So I went with my now the guy who's my brother-in-law and my sister. So they were dating at the time. I was the third wheel tagging along to the movie theater
Nice.
with them to see How to Lose a Guy in 10
Nice.
days. So
Nice.
let's see, how old was I? Was probably 15 though. So um, yeah, I honestly I would not have a problem with it at all personally.
Moving along here, we could get into the plot. Before I get into the plot, Nick, I want to ask you, do you think this movie is funny?
I do. I
You
laughed a
do?
lot during this movie, and I thought it was funny when I, was 15 and saw it in theaters. So
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
I actually, as far as rom coms go, this is one of the few that I think I actually enjoy. So
Okay. Okay.
just the
I would have
premise
to
and everything.
agree. I think I was watching it with Kayla, and I looked at her and I was like, "You know what? This has to be like my top 3 of romantic comedies." So,
Yeah,
it's a really good movie.
and so
I
like
really
this,
enjoy it.
yeah, yeah, and this era, like from 2000 to 2005, was you could there were tons of rom coms with these quirky situations that came out around
Yeah.
that time. So
Yeah.
this is a um, this is like the epitome of a movie from that time frame.
It is. Absolutely. Okay, so the plot. Do you want me to do that or do you want to do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the plot is essentially uh you've got Andy, who is the female lead, played by Kate Hudson, right? Is that her name?
That is.
And she is a she's got a, what seems to be a more high profile job, and she's got people that work for her, and there is a girl in her little clique that comes into the office and is talking about how this guy won't call her back, and she slept with this guy, and the conversation turns to Andy as she's the beautiful one in the girl friendships out of the three or four girls, however many there were, and uh, this girl, and I forget her name, but she's talking about all the things that she did because she was like head over heels for this guy, and that drove this guy away, but because she wasn't as pretty as Andy, like if Andy were to do those things because she's so pretty, they wouldn't have happened. The guy would have stuck around. So that is the foundation for the start of her side of the plot. On the other
Hmm.
side, you've got Matthew McConaughey's character, and can you remind me his name again, Nick? Ben,
Benjamin
that's right.
Barry. Yeah.
Benjamin Barry. He uh he is also he's in marketing, and he's got a high profile job also, and he is in competition for a pitch meeting with his counterparts, who are two women that are, uh, I guess, evaluated by their boss as better for this pitch meeting than Ben, because they're women, and the pitch meeting is
Hmm.
going to be towards a couple who owns what, like 70 some percent of the diamond industry, and
Yeah.
they want
So
the
it's
women
basically
to
a
give that
diamond
pitch
sales. Yeah.
to the like the LaFleur family, or the DeLauers,
Delauer.
uh and that is the kind of the foundation of what happens with Ben, because Ben makes a bet that he could get any girl in the room, because they're all in this bar, and they're going back and forth about who should be the best, and Ben's trying to win this job or win this pitch meeting because he wants to give the pitch and he thinks he can do it, and it comes down to who's better with women, the two girls or Ben, and then the women and Ben make a bet, overseen by their boss, that if Ben can pick up a girl in the bar selected by the two women, get her to fall in love with him, and take her to the party that is happening at a later date that the DeLauers are putting on for everybody, and they're doing this real black tie event, then he will be able to give the pitch at the meeting. So back to Andy, her friends decide that because she's so pretty, that she wouldn't have scared a guy off if she did all those things. So that's the foundation of the bet that she makes with her friends, that she's going to find a guy, and she's essentially going to give him hell to get him to leave, to prove that it's not a like a pretty thing. It's not about
Well, it
just
was
being
also
beautiful
from
or
her boss.
That's right. That's right, because she's writing
Yeah.
the
So she's
article. Right.
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's writing the article about how to lose a guy in 10 days, which is where the title of the movie comes from. And she's going to do all of the things, all of the self destructive, toxic things that her friend talks about doing to show that any guy would walk away quickly if you do these things. And
That's
so
right.
that's the premise of the article, is to do everything possible to get this guy to leave in 10 days.
And just watching the movie, I mean, made my blood boil. Being out on a date with a girl doing the things that she did, which is why the movie's funny. Um,
Yeah.
is like, just, oh my
Any in
gosh.
particular stick out?
Oh, the one at the basketball game.
Oh
where she
man.
was like, "Oh, can you go get a Coke?" It's like a minute left in the game. Game's on the line, which is really funny because I don't watch really that many sports anymore. But game's on the line, and she's like, "Hey, I need a Coke. Can you go to the concession stand and get me a drink?" And then he brings it back to her, and she's like, "It's not a Diet Coke,"
Mm-hmm.
you know. So all those things are really funny. But yeah, as a dude, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. And I think Matthew
Yeah.
McConaughey did a great job relaying that feeling of like, oh, that just, you know, that what would you
Yeah.
call that? Just that frustration and
Yep.
annoyance. He did a great job uh,
Yeah.
playing that
Because
part.
while she's trying to drive him away, he wants to do what she
Doesn't want,
says
yeah,
because he's trying to make her fall in love with him
right, right.
in the same time period. So it's yeah, it creates some really funny situations
And just real quick
like
for
that one. The
clarity, one
one.
thing that I think we left out was, so we've got these two different bets going on. Well, the girls that are fighting for the job against Ben for that pitch meeting get to select the girl in the bar that Ben has to make fall in love with him. And they just so
Hmm.
happen to select Andy, who has the bet with her friend. So that's the start
Yeah.
of the comedy.
But then the one girl who picked her knew about what she was trying to do with the article too.
That's correct.
So
That's right.
she picked Andy on purpose to create this conflict to try to make Ben fail.
Awesome. So getting into our first theme here, selfish pursuits over people. Nick, I wrote that theme title, and I kind of want
Hmm.
you to maybe either guess or just kind of talk about what you think where I'm kind of going to go with that.
Well, I mean, what I think is both main characters have no, at least initially, have no desire to serve or help the other person. They're both totally um, totally engaged and focused on their careers and how
That's
they
right.
can make their careers get to where they want to be. So you have Matthew McConaughey's character Ben trying to get the account, get the pitch meeting. He wants to be the one to take over this Delauer account and make the pitch and be in charge of the marketing campaign. And then Andy has her own career things where she's in this for the sole purpose to be able to write what she wants to write. Because if she does a good job and her boss likes what she comes up with, then her boss said she can write what she wants to write, right? So
That's right.
that's what she's pursuing. So they both have their competing agendas, right? And it's deeper than just the funny situation of her trying to lose him and him trying to make her fall in love with him. They have their own competing agendas that bring that about. Is that what you're thinking with that?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty spot on. I just, from our perspective, when you have a worldview that maybe not so much on the extreme completely forgets about humanity, even though there are some that do. When you get caught up in your own self, you forget of maybe the consequences of what you're doing, and this sets up kind of this sets up a lot of hypocrisy later in the movie when they both find out of what's going on.
Hmm.
But what I would say is, from our worldview perspective, there's no loving your neighbor in this. You're completely entering in this engagement with the other person, perceiving your intentions as genuine, and you're only in it to get out of it what you want, what your carrot is, or not, your carrot, yeah, your job or your promotion or whatever that may be. And that's
Hmm.
definitely not loving your neighbor as yourself. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And then it's also like, even on a more fundamental level, we're made in the image of God, and we have dignity and purpose, and we have all of that. The Bible's clear on that. And so even deeper than loving your neighbor, you're actually disrespecting something God made and put his image on. His
Hmm.
his you know
Yeah.
imprinted himself on that person, and you have to, you definitely have to treat others at a higher regard than
Yeah.
what that's what's happening here. But one thing that you said that was
No,
super interesting, Nick. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I don't want to. Go ahead.
I was just gonna go right along with that. You see that in every character. It's not
You
even
do.
just the two main characters. It's the two girls who pick Andy out of the room to say you have to make her fall in love with you. It's and then when they again we constantly say spoilers are on here when they actually prompt um, the other two of Ben's friends to tell Andy that it was all a bet to make it
Right.
all come crashing down. They show a lack of compassion and a lack of viewing anyone else as a human. The boss, and I think this is really cool because for the entire time, Andy's boss is kind of separate from the whole thing and viewing it just as an article. But then you have that scene at the party where Andy's boss accidentally tells Ben about Andy's
Right.
article. And then you see the look on her face like, oh no,
The guilt and the
what just
shame.
happened?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's hard to tell, is that her putting the pieces together like, oh wait, this is a real guy.
Yeah.
This is somebody who's real, who's going to be absolutely destroyed by this and hurt by this. Or is that her thinking, "Oh no, I might have just ruined this article."
Right. It's hard to
Which
tell.
what
You're
do you
right.
think is going on? Yeah.
I think
So,
um I think it's both. In my opinion, it's both. I think it's both because she was very much all about the writing, and to your point, her selfishness was really seen at the very end when she says, "All right, Andy, you did it. You can
mhm.
write about whatever you want." And then and then Andy started like kind of bringing up topics that she wanted to write about: politics, sports. Nope, can't write about those. Nope, can't write about those. You can write about whatever you want as long as it's what I want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so uh I think more so just I spoiled the article, and I'm the one that let the cat out of the bag.
Mhm.
Less, I think there was a little bit of shame that this is a real guy, but maybe not so much, maybe more that she's the one that didn't want to ruin it. So it's still focused on herself.
Mhm.
Um, but it maybe been a come to Jesus moment that, oh, I'm like, he's standing right in front of me. So maybe a little bit of that too. But one thing that you said is earlier that you said, uh, they're both looking at it for what they can get out of it for themselves. And I think that's a
Mhm.
really good segue into one of your themes about just how it's just transactional, how it can be transactional.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
your theme was love is not transactional.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you see that play out because they don't actually, and there's this, I'll talk about this scene again in a little bit, so I don't want to be repetitive, but regardless of that, they don't actually start to see each other as equals or as somebody that they could actually love and serve until the trip to see his family, right?
Yeah,
And it's
that's right.
at that point that that's like a turning point where
Hmm.
it's, at least for that weekend, it wasn't about what can I get from you and then what can you get from me. Like their agendas fell to the wayside, and then that's where a relationship actually started to build. And
Right.
so with that, you can see that play out, and I think that's just an extreme version or allegory for the way dating is, and even marriage to some degree is in society now. It's purely, I bring this income into the marriage, you bring this income into the marriage, or you bring this thing into the marriage and I bring this thing into the marriage, and then together I'll do my things and you do your things. I'll benefit from you and you'll benefit from me. And if at any point one of us stops benefiting from the other, we can cut ties and leave. We can
Yeah,
just
it's
get
a
out.
it's a business
This
contract, not
transaction
a.
isn't working
Yep,
anymore. It's a
that's
business
right.
contract or a business agreement, and that that's a big part of a breakdown in marriage, and that is not two sides coming together for an agreement or for a purpose. It's the Bible would refer to as a covenant. It's me committing to you regardless of what I get from you. So it's the everyone kind of um, everyone kind of probably thinks it's cliche nowadays, but every wedding you hear till death do us part, right? You hear for better or for worse, right? It's not just when I'm worse; it's also when I have to be the strong one and and they're the weak one, and then vice
Right.
versa when I'm the weak one and they have to be the strong one, right? There's a constant giving of yourself to the other person for better or for worse, regardless of the situation, and those vows have gotten to the point where they don't really mean anything. Um, it's just part of the list of things you have to say in order to get your marriage license and have your reception and then move on to whatever comes next. So in society, love is just very transactional, and that has caused all kinds of issues in marriage with divorce rates and um, kids in homes without fathers, and just the ease that somebody can just cut ties and leave,
Let me ask you this
especially
question.
in a lot of situations, men.
Yeah, let me ask
Go
you this
ahead.
question because the theme is love is not transactional.
Hmm.
Do you see a correlation between romance being more maybe not correlation, maybe that's the wrong word, but I guess what I'm saying is that business agreement or that business contract that you just spoke about in romance does not present itself in friendship. So
Can you
like
say that again?
in our society today, I would say that what we just talked about, our discussion on love not being transactional,
Hmm.
but it is in our society. I don't know if I
Hmm.
necessarily see the same with being like friends with someone or like friendship in a broader scope. I don't know if I see the same like, hey, we're friends and I'm gonna get it out of you and you're gonna, we're. I don't necessarily. I think it's more of just more of what maybe I'm there to help. I think friendship is still kind of shallow in our society, so I'm just speaking
Hmm.
broadly, but I don't necessarily see the same business agreement type environment.
Yeah, it's
It's
definitely
like,
different.
would you
Yeah,
agree, or do you have any ideas on why that would be?
yeah, and I think I would both agree and disagree,
Okay.
because at the same time, because I think what you're saying is true a lot of the times, and I think there's also other times where friendship is kind of transactional. Um,
Yeah.
but the truth that so if we're going with that truth that still in society we still view true friendship as something that's not transactional, that's more about maybe at one point it was and then it becomes a true bond um, later. But I think what that reveals is that being different than romantic relationships, it means that majority of people don't view their romantic interest or partners as friends. They don't
Right.
see
Right.
that person as a friend, right? That's not a friend. That's somebody. I don't get my friendship needs filled by this person. I get my romantic needs filled by this person, right? It's not building
Right.
a
And I think I
friendship and
agree
a
with the way you
bond with
worded
one
that.
another. Yeah.
It's my romantic needs. I'm not here to give
Right.
romantic needs. I'm here to just receive romantic needs.
Hmm.
For sure. Um,
Yeah.
so then I
Absolutely.
guess that's a good segue into our next theme, which is friendship in dating and marriage. So if we don't necessarily
Absolutely.
see that business agreement in the romance, like it kind of seems like the friendship would be an important piece before you embark on a dating journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't even necessarily think it has to come in that order, but dating should be about building a bond, building a
Right.
friendship, right? When you're courting and dating somebody, you should be becoming friends, even as a higher priority than you're becoming romantically interested in each other.
Right.
Or, you know, physically attracted to somebody. The goal is building a friendship, because ultimately, whatever it is you're physically attracted to, if you do get married, you're both going to age, and you can
Right.
still believe your spouse is beautiful, but some of those things that were once what drew you to that person are not going to be there anymore.
Right.
But if you have a foundational friendship that underlies everything, and that's what is ultimately pulling you together, is this deep bond that you have with one another, then you last through those changes. And any other changes that come before or after that, it provides you endurance. You can endure through things when you have a friendship with each other, rather than just, again, that transactional relationship that we talked about before.
And I think a lot of this too. I know we're kind of flipping back and forth between these two themes. I think a lot of it is love in today's society is defined as sex.
Hmm.
It's
At least
not
romantic
defined.
love.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But even sometimes not.
Hmm.
With hookup culture and the way it is now, you know, partying Friday night, take a girl home, friends with benefits, Netflix and chill, like all this stuff is out in our society, and obviously as Christians, we need to abstain from all of that, and obviously follow what the Bible teaches. But it seems to me that ultimately, like, I guess if we're being specific, romantic love is boiled down to just sex. And I think that's such a cheap definition of what that is.
Hmm.
Because if that's true, so like if you're looking at like truly well lived out Christian marriage, the love gets stronger over time, and it has nothing to do with the physical intimacy. Maybe not nothing, but what I'm saying is it's not a direct one-to-one correlation. There are things that my
Right.
wife does that make me love her more regardless of our intimate increase or decrease for whatever that
Mm.
season of life may be. You know what I mean? So I would
Yeah.
I would say that the world has believed this lie. If we look at like finding the lie is that if you sleep with someone, you love them.
Hmm.
And maybe I have the wrong outlook on what society is saying. Maybe they just don't even look at sex as love at all.
It's just transactional.
It's just what it is. It's just sex, and that's
Yeah.
what we do. And
Just a thing.
if we're doing that, then maybe we're dating. And it's almost like
Yeah.
they're walking through these relationships, these romantic relationships, completely oblivious. And when I say the word oblivious, and we're talking about this movie, I think of Mrs. DeLauer. I think of Mrs. DeLauer. And at the end of the movie at the party, you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
She is doing her own thing at that party,
Yep.
man. And she is
Did you see the? So do you
oblivious.
see the look? Do you see the look that her husband gives when the lights come up and she's announced, her name is announced, like they say thank you, and she's standing there hitting on Ben? Do you
Yeah.
do you notice the look that her husband
Yep.
gives in that moment, just like the disdain
Yep.
that he has right there?
Rolling his
Um,
eyes and yeah. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
And she's just completely oblivious to like everything that's going on to in the room because she's worried about is herself. Like that's all she can see
Hmm.
is who's attractive, who do I think is attractive, what can I get out of other people? It's all about her, and she can't see past that. So I think that that's kind of a good correlation, pulling all of this out of the movie. Um,
Yeah.
so
And one
anything
more
else you
thing
wanted to
on
add?
that.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Just on the friendship piece of that, right before New Year's, um, Liam asked, we were talking about having people over for New Year's, and he was like, so he's 15, and he was like, "Who are your friends?" And like, so I was like, well, most of my good friends live out of state. And I don't know if I said this. I don't think I did say this in the moment, but the reality is, so he's asking about who our friends are, who we like to hang out with, who who are our best friends and things like that. And what's going on in my mind is like, your mom is my best friend, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, I enjoy hanging out with these people that I've known for a long time, and they're really good friends, and I miss seeing them all the time when they move out of state, and all of those things are true, and would love it if they came over and stayed with us and things like that. But the reality is like, your mom is my best friend. Like, I wouldn't. There's nobody that I would prefer to spend time with. No one else. Like, it's just, and maybe that's even the good side of that of the transactional nature of things. It's like, she is my best friend, and even if all other friends are gone, I'm good. Right?
Right.
This is the
Right.
person I want to spend all my time with. I'm good, and we've been married for 9 years now, going on 10, and that's just the reality of it. Like, she is my friend. She is my best
I
friend,
think
and
so.
if I'm
This
watching a
kind of
movie, I want to watch it with her.
right, and I mean, I have very similar feelings in my marriage. I just had this thought, and bear with me here because I'm just thinking this now on the spot. So, I think that the only way two men can have the same relationship, or at least the same level of bond, we'll call it a bond, as a man and a woman in a Christian led marriage, I think have to go to war.
Mm.
I think the only way that you could get to that, and obviously I'm not talking about like a romantic thing. I'm just saying, because that's a whole other side of the thing. But I'm just saying, just take romance out of it, and I think that's kind of what
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking to, is just the friendship part of your marriage. I
Mm-hmm.
think the only way that you could get that, the life that you live with your spouse, and the day in and day out, and the ups and downs and ebbs and flows, all of those, rainy days, and you said for better or for worse, all of those, they absolutely stink to go through, but those are the opportunities that become building blocks that make your relationship stronger over time, years and years and years. And I think the only way for two guys to, as like brothers in Christ, to get that is to go to war, or you know like like start a business together and go through something very difficult like that, in order to even
Yeah.
be able to get to the same level. Because I would agree with you, like if someone asks me who my best friend is, I always ask for a descriptor. Are we talking best guy friends, or like what are we talking about? Because my wife, like,
Mm-hmm.
I would agree, my wife is my best friend. And there's a lot of people that I would rather say, hey, can't hanging out with a wife tonight, we're watching a movie. Gonna go watch how to lose a guy in 10 days tonight, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting, and thought of that on the spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, Andy definitely goes on a self-destructive path here at the end.
Absolutely.
um and I think this is actually, I think you mentioned this was Katie's idea,
Yeah, she told me
this
about
last
this
theme.
morning. So yeah, we watched the
So
movie
she's
last
gonna
night.
come on the podcast and talk to us right now, right? Special guest
Sh
introducing
that
Katie,
that would be wonder
everybody.
that Yeah, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? But
Oh
yeah.
man.
Nope, nowhere around here.
Oh,
Yeah.
bummer.
Um, but
Maybe
yeah,
we should
this what
call
she talked about this. No, we're not putting her on the spot. Like, I want to maintain my friendship with her. Um, being
Nice,
on good
nice. I
terms.
won't put you
So
through that, man. I won't put you
yeah.
through that.
Um, so yeah, just, and it's on purpose, and it's part of the humor is all the self-destructive things that Andy does to try to get Ben to go away, and she's baffled at every point that he's still here, he's still coming after me, and obviously he has his own reasons for that. The we talked about the conflicting agendas and all that
But
stuff,
from her
but
perception, she
um,
doesn't know.
yeah, she doesn't know that though. She's just like,
Right.
what is this dude doing? Why is he still like date? Why are we still together? Why is he still dating me? And actually, the one that I think is the funniest, you talked about the basketball game at the beginning of the episode, but when they're in the restaurant after she
Right.
declares herself as vegan, or
Yep.
she doesn't eat
Yep.
meat, and
Right.
then she
She
gets up
goes
and
to
then starts crying and says, "My boyfriend thinks I'm fat," right? And
right.
then she goes to the back, and everyone looks at Matthew McConaughey like he's the most evil dude in the world. And but yeah, so so many just
No, but the funny
self-destructive
part is she
things.
walks back to the kitchen and finishes watching the game.
And eats a burger or something, right? She
Yeah.
eats this
Yeah.
like a wrap or something while he's sitting out there with his rice and tofu or
And they,
whatever
like,
he's
plan
got.
dinner right over the game, and she's
Yeah,
it's so funny.
yeah. And then telling him she has tickets to the game when it's actually a Celine Dion concert, and they walk out of the concert. That's so many just funny things, and every single one of them is designed to get Ben to go away, right? That's the whole
Mhm.
point of the movie. But so Katie came up with the fact that in our sin, that's exactly what we do with God. Is we just as long as we continue and remain in our sin, we're just actively trying to get God to go away. We're self destructively doing everything that we possibly can to get rid of his pursuit. Because the closer God gets to us, the closer we see our flaws and we see the reality of who we are as sinful men and women, um, and we don't want to take that. And his pursuit is constant, and for those that he loves, his pursuit is never ending. And yet here we are in our sin, being self-destructive and pushing that away and saying, no, leave me alone, get away from me as quickly and as fast as possible, get away from me, until there's something clicks, something changes, and we see the love that is in his pursuit, whether we think we deserve it or not, and we respond in repentance and faith to actually come to him, respond to his calling, respond to his pursuit in faith and love towards him and living for him. So just that parallel there, and in that, if we're looking at it allegorically in that sense, not saying that this was intentional or on purpose on the part of the filmmakers, but um, Andy being us humans, and Matthew McConaughey's character Ben kind of being the pursuer in that situation, like um, and her self-destructive nature pushing him away, and then finally his pursuit gets to her, and in that moment they're together and they're united together through that. So yeah, I thought
And I
that was
and I
really
think
good. I
that
thought
and I
that was
think that that actually pairs with, the final theme. We kinda went out of order, but, one of the themes that I wanted to mention earlier was the power of acceptance in a safe place.
hmm
And you spoke about when Andy went to his parents,
yep.
and they were playing, the card game. And the card game actually had a lot of meaning because it was about reading people, and Ben was really good about this. He's really good at the game, and you were just talking about that allegory, and I think it's almost like the salvation moment
hmm
is you get to this place of where you can't push him away anymore.
hmm
And it was really the hug of Ben's mom, where you have this pursuer, and Ben's mom could in that allegory fit the church and how it's supposed
hmm
to work, where you have this safe place to be completely honest about your sin and get to the point to where it's not about me anymore. I'm going to reposition myself underneath this humility blanket, submit to God, and go forward. And that
hmm
safe place should be the church. And I kind of thought that kind of fit
yeah,
really well within that allegory, where
yeah,
that was the shift that you talked about, where it was like, it's all about me, it's all about me, it's all about me. This is real, and
yeah,
I really really like it here,
yep,
and I'm
yeah,
safe, and I got a hug,
mm,
and it was real. Now these are real people, and then
hmm
there's the change, and that's the response. So
yep, yeah.
I loved the movie.
That's the turning
It was a
point of the whole movie. Yeah.
real great movie.
hmm
I have it in my top three rom-coms, man.
What would be? Can you name two others?
Oh, I don't know. I think
Top three is just oddly specific. Like
yeah, I would
top
say
three.
I just always go to top 3. Top five's too many, because when you get to, like, when you say
Okay.
top 5, and I know that this is kind of a side conversation, but briefly, when you say top 5, you always wonder about 6 and 7 too, and it's like, "Oh, man, but 6 and 7 could be in the top 5." And then you just think top 3 is a little bit it's a little separated.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Is that fair at
So
least?
when you I don't think so, but when you say yeah, when you say top 3, you don't wonder about 4 and 5?
Not as much. Those seem further away from the top 3 than 6 and 7 feel
Really?
from the top 5. Yeah, no, definitely said top 10, 11 and 12 are, like, even closer than 5 and 6 to top 5,
I guess it
or 6
depends
and
on
7
the
to top
list
5.
that you're making, right? I mean,
But if we're talking rom-coms, I mean, how many rom-coms have you seen in your life?
sadly a lot.
Oh, fair. Okay, that's not
You
helping
know,
my
I
point
saw
at
that.
all.
Yeah, I saw this in theaters with my as a third wheel with my sister and her at the time boyfriend. That wasn't the first time we did that exact same thing. So,
I will say that
um,
if I had to pick the other 2, on the spot, I would have to say the 2 that come to mind, but see, now we're getting back into my argument. I might be, refuting myself here. Uh, I think they're all Nicholas Sparks, inspired movies, but, the one with, shoot, uh, oh, man, that's bad. I just blanked.
what the note? Are
Well,
you thinking of the
The
Notebook?
Notebook. Yeah, The Notebook would be up there, and
Is
then,
that so? I've actually never seen the Notebook. Is it a rom com, or is it
oh,
more
maybe it's
like
more of
a
just a
drama?
romantic drama. Yeah, maybe that's fair. There's
Yeah,
some funny parts in it. I don't know. There's some funny parts in it, but it's
yeah.
probably more drama. But
What about
I guess
Hitch?
Hitch would be a good one. Kayla, I think that's probably Kayla's favorite. Hitch
Yeah.
is a good one. Um, I just can't think of many rom-coms that are like really, really good. But but yeah. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Um, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow all of us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and be on the lookout for more episodes. We're going to bring episodes this year, the first and third Friday of each month. So be on the lookout for the movie review episodes. And then we're going to be live on Thursdays starting January 25th, and then going live at on Thursdays at 8 p.m. So be on the lookout for those as well. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Hey guys, it's Parker from the WatchWell Podcast. If you liked this video, we want to go ahead and have you subscribe right here on this button. If you want to watch the full podcast episode, go ahead and click right here. And if you want to watch another WatchWell clip, go ahead and click right here. And remember, if you're going to watch well. We'll see you in the next one.